Hello, today is Monday, October 14th. This is the cluster API provider for AWS um, office hours meeting. Just a reminder for everyone that we follow the CNCF guidelines. In short, please be respectful and kind to each other. And we ask that participants use the raise hand feature. I've got the window open so I can keep an eye on that. And yeah. Um, PSAs, there are none here. I'm going to give Richard a moment. If you do you have any PSAs that are outside the normal agenda, Richard?
Not outside the normal agenda, but thanks. No.
Okay, cool. So the first topic I have, and this is something Joel found on our uh within our cluster and customer had run into it. Um, a summary is that AWS custom DHCP options set a custom host name, and that host name can have capital letters. So it just puts it in there. Um, when the um, host name that you pull from the AWS EC2 metadata service is given to the kubelet, the kubelet forces them to be lowercase. Um, we ran into an issue downstream where this caused certificates to not be accepted because they didn't match strictly. We have fixed our downstream issue to our comparison is case insensitive now. But Joel was wondering if we should make a change to lowercase these internal DNS names. I think my question was, does anyone know if historically was this a requirement or this is just something that happened accidentally? Yeah, I didn't see who went up first. Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if I want it first or not, but I was just going to suggest, is there any reason why we couldn't just have the certs support both? That way there it is fully backwards compatible and forwards compatible since it DNS and doesn't really matter?
Yeah, so from our side, we fixed it. So for us, we fixed our cert checking code, so it doesn't care anymore.
No, I
Um,
mean, when the certs are made, have the certs have both
oh,
names.
I see. I see. Um, yeah, that's a possibility. Richard.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I wasn't aware of any historical context as to why that might have been.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I was going to say that I think just lowercasing it now may actually break anyone who is case sensitive. Um, but I like Mike's idea of putting both in there so that we don't break anyone who's relying on the current behavior, but can support the other as well. Um, okay, I'll take an action item to respond to this and see if that's something we want to go forward with. And then Richard, you have an update on the AMIs and the generation.
Yeah, I will speed through it because there's a lot of links there. But so summary of the situation is we have a new AWS account, and we have some existing infra provisioning to create roles and stuff in that account. I've linked the code there. Um, we also have a rudimentary start of a build process. So it's just a GitHub action at the moment that will ask for a number of parameters and then call image builder to do the building of the images. The main thing is it targets that new account. So it gets the creds for that new account. And so then the AMIs will be into that new community account. Um, I've just today done another PR with another version of the workflow, with the idea being that you can just embed a whole pack of vars string. So if you needed some more configuration compared to the limited set that exposed by the existing workflow, then so that might be a good option as well. Also today also changed it to pin it to a specific version of image builder as well. So we got some reliability between the builds, and so we make a conscious choice of upping it to a different version of image builder. So that does work. There's a few things that have come out as a result of that. So we were building images for quite a few versions of Ubuntu from 18.04 to 24.04. So I removed 18.04 and 20.04. So it's just 22.04 and 24.04. Black Card's building as well. All the RHEL, CentOS, and I think it's Rocky Linux, is it? Are not currently building. So I created an issue for those to be fixed by someone in the community, but there won't be any MIs for those. So it's literally just two versions of Ubuntu and Flatcar. I've done v129.9, published that, and also I'm in the process of rebuilding the 135 after the image builder release. There was some CVEs, so they said rebuild your images. So I'm literally just running through those. So essentially what that sums up to is we will have community images for the two Ubuntu versions, Flatcar, for those two versions of Kubernetes initially. And then we can publish other ones as we need. But at least it's a starting point. So that pull request there as well. I did put in a proposed AMI publication policy that summarizes basically don't use these things for production. These are really just for your testing purposes. If you rely on the images, you're probably better off building them yourself. We won't keep all versions forever. Maybe, again, needs to be decided on the PR, but maybe current version from image builder -3, major minor versions, that is. Then after that period, then we just delete the AMIs because, yeah, we don't want to be carrying that cost forever as an open source project. That basically sums it up. We won't necessarily rebuild on security fixes as well, again, because they're not for production. So that, yeah, feel free to comment on that. But that PR also updates the lookup logic and stuff like that, so it starts to use the community account. One question is, do we need to start building sample ARM images? Because it's just AMD 64 currently. I know there's a few people that are interested in ARM. So that's one question, if anyone has an opinion on that. And there's a bunch of help needed to I guess, ultimately get this where we want it to be. Manually invoking the workflow. Yeah, it's all right short term, but long term, we probably want to fully automate that, like when there's a new case version, text file, something like that. So help needed that. We need to fix some of the old or some of the other target OSs as well. I'm thinking that when we get these two versions published, we can do a new patch release so that at least some people can start using new AMIs, and including our end-to-end tests, which are all completely failing because there's no AMIs. That was a long summary, but I think I covered everything.
I was going to ask, I think I'm going to open it up here. I think we had a support matrix. Here we go. Cappy has a support matrix that I believe for 130. I'm sorry, 1.7 supports from 130 back to 127 and 125. Do we want to create AMIs spanning that window so that we can verify that yes, we conform with the CAPI contract? It is a lot more. Am I sharing? I'm not sharing, are I? Am I? I'm sorry.
No.
1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. Um, okay. So, um, completely lost my train of thought. And I shared the wrong window. Wow. Completely threw me. Okay. So here we have um, for the management cluster, cluster API itself seeks to support up to 4 minor releases. So that's N through N minus 3. For the workload cluster, we support N and N to N minus 5. So right now we would be going for workload, it would be 125 up to 130 and 130, no, 131 with once we get 1.8 in there. And 127 to 130 in the case of cluster API 1.7. Do we want to support that window?
Um, I would say um, we don't test. We haven't historically tested with all those versions of AMIs. We sort of just tested with one or two
Okay.
versions. Sorry. Um, I would also say it's quite onerous, even if we just did one patch version to go back. And because essentially you have to craft the Packer variables file, make sure you get all of the different versions of Kubernetes components matching up. And in, was it 128, they changed the package registry. So it would also be a case of changing the image builder version as well when we get back to the earlier versions. So I would I would say really it's just we should have enough people to do it. I don't think all the time or
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So
Ideal
that
world, yes.
ideally, yes, but yeah. Okay, fair enough. We don't have the contributors to help with that. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we've also got a yeah, practical issue as well, which is currently our the AWS account is limited to 50 public AMIs per region. We can do a service request, obviously, to up that, but they were unwilling to up it any further until we were using it more. So there's a practical point that at some point we would have to do that anyway.
Okay. That's reasonable. I think some of the existing tests do spawn an older cluster. So we might have to go through and modify those to cover the cases we'll support. So that this may also be something we bring to the cluster API meeting to say, hey, like I know CapG is probably in a similar situation in terms of the support window and maintainers. So maybe that's something we bring up there and see what folks think. Um, regarding ARM, I don't know. Has there been a request to support ARM?
Yeah, I think there was a recent um, message in the channel, wasn't there?
Okay.
I think somewhere.
Yeah, okay. So There's a thread and somebody was updating stuff on last week, talking about I'll grab the link. There's also, let's see. Oh, this is the Cloud Init fix. Okay. Okay, this is separate. Um, so that's another another topic. Yeah, okay. So there is some request for ARM support. Um, I don't know if we have nodes for that. Um, and I think the upstream Kubernetes project is formally restricting the architecture it's building on now. There's a thread on Kubernetes dev, I think, about that. Um, I think it's going to be AMD 64 and ARM only for official builds. Everything else, folks will have to build. Um, okay. For the last part of this, it sounds like we need to do a point release once we get the AMIs all done. So that makes sense. Um, I'm actually going to skip ahead because this is relevant to point releases. Damiano got this started months ago, I think, at this point. But I will finish this up to bump to Cappy v1.8. Though this says 0, but I'll update that to the latest version. I think we discussed last time that we have a third-party version of um, one of the code gen tools. It was vendored and no other project uses it. So uh, I'm going to toss that and just use upstream like everybody else does. Um, so that will need a new minor, but not a new patch release. Um, I'm hoping I can get this done and resolved today or tomorrow, but then I'll be out for a week. Um,
Yeah,
so
as I was mentioning to Nolan, it would be nice to have this out soon-ish, um, because I think, we are getting to the tail end of probably like upstream CAPI releases for 1.8, and I think they are going to start targeting 1.9. So it's probably a good time to get a bump out for 1.8 on Kappa. Um, so I think it would be probably good to see, what other features we need to ship, and kind of maybe make a milestone, um, to see what we need to squeeze in, and prioritize getting this out. Not sure what other feels about it.
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I think. Sorry,
go ahead.
I didn't raise my hand. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Um, yeah, I think it'd be good as well. Yeah, for the reasons you said, Damiano, but also we can then do the 131 AMI as well, and it should all play nicely.
Yeah. And speaking of a milestone, I know there is one PR that Mohammed has up, adding some stuff to the Rosa platform that they would like to see in a new release. So hopefully we can get that reviewed and merged so that it can end up in the next minor. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot. Like, is there a milestone already up on GitHub for this, or do we need to create one and kind of pull in things?
Looks like there's a 270, but nothing's in it.
Okay.
So yeah,
Um,
we can populate that.
okay, let's do it then.
Okay, I'll throw what I know needs to be in there, and then maybe we can do that asynchronously.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can assume, whatever merged, we still want to have it into 7.
Right.
Um, but then, open and yeah, open PRs that, we absolutely think we need to squeeze in. Let's add them. Um, but yeah, let's not delay too much with features, I guess.
Yep.
Unless, there is something blocking.
Okay, cool. I'm going to move to the next topic then. Richard, you have an owner's update to reduce pinging, I guess, SIG cluster lifecycle uh, folks.
Yeah, yeah. It's a Christian from Cappy pinged and said, yeah, he keeps getting added to reviews, and it was, yeah, it made sense. He was like, well, we're from upstream Cappy, we don't necessarily know all the things to review in Kappa. So it got me thinking, well, actually, should we just remove these aliases so that they don't just get pinged? Um, Sort of made sense to me. But these groups have been in there, I guess, historically for a while. Um, yeah, it just yeah seemed like a good idea, but yeah, I'm not wedded to it. So we can merge or not merge. It's all good.
This this may actually be a good topic for the Cappy meeting because I think at least having some of these admins, maybe not the maintainers as reviewers, but the admins so that the SIG cluster lifecycle leads can do administrative stuff if they need to on the repos. Um, I think that makes sense personally, but I'm very curious what they would think. I think that the main thing you're trying to solve for, Richard, is just people aren't getting pinged for reviews in which they don't know what to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My proposal would be to double check with, either in the CAPI meeting or the SIG cluster lifecycle meeting and say, hey, are these something we need to maintain?
Yeah, I kind of agree to, bring this up to the wider CAPI community meeting because, maybe, yeah, Chris doesn't want to be pinged by these things, but maybe there are other CAPI community members that are. And so, at least giving them, a heads up and say, okay, you won't receive these anymore. If you want to, you need to subscribe to the repo and stuff, then at least from a like a notification standpoint, it's probably beneficial.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think, yeah, we can talk about this CAPI office hours. If folks want to be taken off as individuals, that makes sense. But I think leaving the review, at least the leads, uh, to have admin rights over the repo makes sense. Okay. The next topic is removing the requirement for emojis on PRs. So, Richard linked to a TLDR on PRs putting a prefix or asking people to put a prefix on the PR title.
Yeah. Um, uh, Honestly, it drives me insane. Every time I open a PR, I've got to link to this place to get an emoji to put it into the title when we don't actually use those emojis in any way, shape, or form. It's just like an extra pain for me personally, and because I always forget as well, and then
Hmm.
it blocks, and I'm like, oh my God, every single time. Um, I can understand in some of the other repos where they have some automation built on these, don't they? Like on the release notes generation and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a pet peeve on my side with no real benefit that I can see.
Yeah, we we use the upstream release notes generator, and I don't think upstream cube switches on these. Um, and I believe Stefan recently said they were there was what I can't forget the repo, but there was a repo. I can't remember the repo. There's a repo where they were like retiring a GitHub action that was tied to generating release notes or something. Uh, I th I think these all were connected at one point in time. Um, I would say as a person reading this, it's sometimes nice to skim and see this because you don't necessarily know right away. And I don't think Tide or Prow are smart enough to know if it's a feature or a bug. At the same time, yeah, it's kind of annoying, and I don't know that it's adding a ton of value. Um, so I would say that making removing the requirement would be fine. Maybe we put a vote out there. I know there's a bunch of maintainers that aren't here. Maybe we put a vote out with lazy consensus.
Yeah, yeah, I would probably put a vote out. Um, but rather than having laser consensus, I would say is like we count the votes at the end and see, if we have more than one to drop it or more than one to keep it, just because among maintainers and reviewers, I think
Yeah.
we should all align because in the end, this is probably something that benefits us more than the end users that create the PRs. Um, I know one benefit of this is that by having users automatic like by having users or mandating users to put emojis into the title, we already get the benefit of them being tagged, and so we can filter by bugs and we can filter by features, and sometimes it's easy to look things up that way. So then when we do a release, we can say, okay, let's see, do we have all bugs in the release, and then we can make a point release without like a patch release without a second thought, or we see there is a feature in there, and then at that point that might um, mean we need a minor release and so on. So that's the only benefit I can see from there. I personally don't open like tons of PRs, so I might not be like feeling the same pain. But I also, in the past had to look up emojis, and yeah, I see what you mean there, Richard. Um, so yeah, plus one for putting out a vote, and yeah, I don't feel strongly about either keeping or dropping. So let's see what the others think.
Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea with the putting the vote out and to get the consensus. I'd say with the filtering as well, we do require that every PR has a kind on it. So kind, feature, kind, bug, kind, refactor. So we sort of have that ability as well via native, I guess, GitHub labels, which I think is probably a bit more, I don't know, it's a bit more inbuilt into the workflow of GitHub. But yeah, it's a good point that we don't know if people actually rely on those for their workflow. And they might just filter on those. So yeah, that's a good shout, Damiano. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, you're right. I actually um, forgot we had the mandatory labeling as well in the description. So yeah, that's probably even the way we get the labeling rather than through the interpretation of the emojis. So probably that use case I I mentioned decades. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, if we can still retain that kind of filtering ability, then I don't think there are many more advantages to that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think putting out the vote is the good next step. We can see if folks think they're useful or if they're a detriment. Maybe people would be more likely to contribute if this is one less requirement on them. I don't know. Um, yeah. Okay. For the next topic, creating non-EKS clusters with Kate's K82 uh, with 130 fails.
Yeah, it's a weird one. This one.
Ah, RSA ciphers were removed.
Yeah. Yeah, I built a whole bunch of images Friday and uh, this morning, and none of them were working, and I wasted a lot of time, and then realized someone had created an issue for it already. Um, yeah, so they've listed the two fixes there really in points 2 and 3. Either we update the cipher suites, um, well, yeah, easiest ones are cipher suites when you start with kube components, or we just start defaulting to the NLB and remove well, not remove, but just stop defaulting to classic ELB.
Probably just, for the sake of having a release that works before switching to a different kind of load balancer is probably nicer at first to, introduce these ciphers. And then maybe we can evaluate if it's, beneficial to switch to the new load balancer or not. But I would probably, lean towards updating the ciphers first. Not sure what the others think.
Yeah, I think that makes sense in the short term for getting a 262 out. Um, in terms of changing a default on the API, that seems risky. I know we have an ongoing issue for um, a was V2 or V3 API. Um, that would do a lot of rework. Um, I feel like the NLB change would fit better there. Um, so yeah, my inclination would be to do add the ciphers, and then revisit changing the default.
With adding the ciphers, would we be happy with handle it via documentation? So hey, you have to add these kubelet args to your kubeadm control plane or kubeadm whatever template it is. Or should we update the templates with it in, or both maybe?
We probably need both.
Yeah, as well as probably putting it in the release notes because that's where people will try and get the newer version, and they might need to update the templates unless they download the new ones or stuff.
Or if they made their own, like the
Yeah.
cluster control templates. I know we don't necessarily use them within OpenShift, but I know other folks do, and like the Quick Start does.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Should be easy enough to do.
Okay, cool. Anything else on that topic? All right. And this last one, Cloud init needs a long-term fix.
Yeah. So this open PR there's various people trying to fix Kappa, non-EKS Kappa, node creation, for newer versions of Ubuntu, because Ubuntu has changed the default version of Cloud Init in those. And this applies to, initially it was reported for 24.04, but it also applies to newer versions of 22.04 as well. They just have newer versions of Cloud Init. And essentially it breaks non-EKS cluster provisioning. The bootstrapping just breaks. And it boils down to, we are restarting. Currently, we're restarting. We're doing like a system cut or restart Cloud Init, because we have this funky thing where we store the bootstrap data in AWS, in Secrets Manager or SSM. The user data from the machine is a script that downloads that from AWS and then restarts Cloud Init to try and then obviously redo Cloud Init after we've downloaded it. And that always used to work, but in newer versions, it doesn't. And this guy, Brett Holman, he was saying actually restarting Cloud Init from Cloud Init is a very, very bad thing, and the behavior will be unexpected. It sort of makes sense. So for the current images, we have downgraded Cloud Init. So we've pinned to old versions. So even for 24.04, we've downgraded the Cloud Init to a known good or known working version of Cloud Init, but that's we can't keep it pinned indefinitely. So his suggestion was we use a custom Cloud Init data source. So he gave us a bit of code, and it's there's a branch of image builder with that in. Yeah, that's it there. Seems to be sort of the long-term solution, but there's some subtlety. It's not working at the moment. So I guess the main thing for me is we need a long-term Cloud Init solution. I think data source is it. And it could be actually we do away completely with the script. We do that, all of the AWS interrogation via the data source as well, potentially. There's just some things that are not working at the moment with it. Mostly working. It feels really close, but there's a subtlety that just doesn't. I can't. It's just way above my understanding of Cloud Init. So yeah, it's more of a, if anyone's interested in helping with this for the long-term fix, it would be great.
This is needed to get AMIs working for non-EKS, we need to get AMIs built and get this working. Are those the two main blockers?
Yeah, so we can get the AMIs built currently because we're pinning. If you go to that image in the image builder repo in the where are we? There's a couple of PRs that are closed. So there's one by me, 1590. It's yeah, Richard Case.
Oh, Richard Case.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 1590. Yeah. So what we've done, and I copied someone else had done here. We're just we're pinning it to the old version, so we can build. That's how we can get the AMIs published now at the moment. But that we can't keep doing that because we can't take advantage of new features, bug fixes, or the usual stuff. So we need this other solution.
Yeah, and it will eventually disappear from the dev repos, I assume.
Yeah, there is that as well. Yeah, there's that practical time bomb.
Yeah. I know Daniel was looking at a bunch of the Cloud Init behaviors that I think this all ties back to that from what I understand. Like he was running into that issue that it's something screwing up when you tell Cloud Init to reboot itself.
Yeah.
And doing that, I guess you're yeah, you're swapping out the Cloud init data file underneath it using Cloud init. Um, yeah, it sounds like that data source is the way to go. I don't know a whole lot about Cloud init. Um, yeah, and I don't have a whole lot of bandwidth to help with this at the moment, but we do need to get stuff building probably by the end of the
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
Um, that would be ideal. Um, the other semi-related, not Cloud init, but image problem is um Red Hat compatible stuff. Like CentOS is essentially done at this point. CentOS 7 was the last one. Um, I could ask around internally and see what we could offer in terms of help on that. I know OpenShift uses Red Hat CoreOS, which is I think it operates similarly to Flatcar. I don't know if we have an upstream analog to it or not, or we could look into CentOS Stream or Fedora as ones that we could help support. Um, so yeah,
yeah,
our current list of things is contracting a little bit because of just kind of the nature of the beast.
yeah. Yeah, understood. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think when I was building them, it was mainly, but I think some of the packages are obviously outdated, so they're just no longer there. Yeah, so I think I'm hoping it'll be a fairly quick fix to fix some of those build targets, but yeah, you never know.
Okay. And yeah, just returning to this one, I think it sounds like we have a Cloud Init contributor telling us to use the data source. So we'll need to do that and hopefully keep that. It's unfortunate it's over in the image builder repo, but rather than in our repo. But if we can get this working, that would be great. Um, I noticed they're on Libera. Um, I don't really use IRC much anymore, so I'm I'm blind to that at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely not like Slack where the messages.
They don't persist unless you have a bouncer.
Yeah, I
Yep,
made that mistake.
yep. I paid for a bouncer for a while. This is something also we might be able to ask Daniel about. I know he was using Cloud init. Maybe he would have some capacity in the upcoming
Yeah,
months.
yeah, it's good. Oh, yeah, I will try and follow up. I've been chatting to Brett on IRC, but yeah, and list of all the things that need fixing, it's a bit lower down the priority for me.
Yeah. Okay. That I think that's it for the agenda. Anything else last minute?
Nope.
All right. I'll stop the share and then we'll